when people talk about motivation, it's ridiculous to me. Like motivation is such.
What's AJ been up to then? Get off your fucking phone, mate. What the fuck is this? Jesus Christ.
God,
mate,
horrible.
we need to start putting some rules up on the door. This is absolutely disgraceful. Comes in here, he's late 20 minutes and he's on his phone.
You weren't even ready. You haven't gotten your hair done.
But does it now look magnificent?
It does.
It does.
Indeed.
Oh, fantastic. All right.
We started already?
We're going to let it slide. I mean,
right.
we just roll. We don't have a particular
All
start. You done?
Yeah, I usually spit before I start talking.
He's got like behavioural problems. He's like you. He's got, just like ADHD. Yeah, real problems. All right, we'll get it under control. So,
Okay.
so tell me, AJ, what's been going on, mate?
What's been going on? Well, I slept for 2 hours last night.
As in intentionally, or
Yeah.
okay,
Kind of had to.
Fill me in on that.
No, so I've been waking up at 4:20ish to meditate, and I started at 4:44. So then get my stuff ready. And yesterday was just one of those nights that I had to finish up some stuff before I take off to Europe. So went to bed around 2, and then like I gotta wake up in 2 hours. And been testing ultimately how sleep actually gets you, or lack thereof, gets you in psychedelic states, and the sensations that it actually produces that we don't get to experience often. Because it kind of reminds me of my days in the military as well, where we'd just be so sleep deprived and just feel so horrible, and then you start hallucinating. It's just, at that time I didn't appreciate that. Now I just see that we can actually tap into the psychedelic state, into different layers of reality when we're actually sleep deprived. So I kind of almost want to do it intentionally more often.
So you're fucking with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a thing. So obviously I know you've been meditating like super early, and I'm back in Bali, thankfully, been getting my routine back on check. And like I would actually do things like the other way around. So if I had like a really late night up, I would then extend my alarm and go, okay, well, I'll have a few hours extra in bed because I've been working, etc. And I decided to do it the other way around. Actually, you inspired me to do that. Do it the other way around. You were saying like you were getting up at 4, still doing your routine, then just having a little nap afterwards. Right. Because what I find is if I get up late, it fucks my day.
Oh, absolutely.
Like I feel there's no question. My day's fucked. Yeah. I feel like a lazy bastard.
It's not just that. That's the thing. It's like I don't know if you still have that, but I kind of detach myself from being productive or creating these outcomes and all that kind of stuff. So that's not that much of a problem for me. It's just that energetically, I'm just more sluggish. I'm just slow. I just don't like that.
Yeah, do you know what it is? I say like the term lazy bastard. I think it's like I've kind of have moved away from that a little bit. I'm not as hard. The inner critic isn't as bad as it used to be.
Right.
Which we can discuss later. It's a fun topic that actually. Yep. But I think it's like I get up now, but it's like where everybody else is already active. There's kind of like so much going on already that it feels like you're a step behind, to a certain extent, and then I think that's what then tees into like the sluggishness feeling. It feels like everything's a little bit slower on my end than where everything else is, the rhythm seems different.
Man, just that hour, that early hour before the world is awake, is just, there's so much power in there. Yeah. And I actually don't understand how people work at that hour, because it just, you can't get a lot of stuff done. It's just, for me personally, I just really like spending time with myself and really digging into this, whatever is happening within, so I can actually set myself up in order to not take on the stuff that I don't want to take on. Because as we go through life, if we don't have, most of us are just taking on this unconscious conditioning, unconscious stuff from the world as we move through it. So if you just start with work first thing in the morning, you're kind of on somebody else's terms immediately. And but to summarize what's been up, I've been excited about life, man. It's been, I just feel peaceful. I feel in love with life. And did I say in love? Yeah.
It can be whatever you want it to be, AJ.
It can. Yeah, in love with life. And it's just the excitement, the genuine excitement of me waking up every morning and not having like a particular reason. It's just the grand vision that is behind is just so, it has such a massive pull that I don't even have to put any effort in. When people talk about motivation, it's ridiculous to me. Like motivation is such bullshit. It's such nonsense. Like if you have to intrinsically motivate yourself to get something done, you definitely don't have a vision that is big enough that is pulling you towards it, or that vision is just not aligned with you at all whatsoever. Because if you actually are on track, you don't even have to consider motivation, inspiration, or watching, motivational YouTube videos before you get started. So.
A bit of spiritual tourism.
Yeah.
But I think in order to go into that, I think we actually have to take it a step back, because this is exactly the practice that you were talking about in the morning. I think what you just said there was key, which was that we start the day by taking on other people's shit. So whether that be looking at your phone first thing in the morning, where you're instantly replying to other people, or even just being around other people at that early time in the morning.
Right.
You don't have space to orientate yourself to where you are actually at before you start replying to other people's and doing other people's bidding. Right. And one thing I've noticed in getting up earlier and earlier is that all the chatter that comes up is just having a level of awareness of the thoughts that come up. So for example, today was a good example. I didn't want to get up this morning. I've trained my arse off the last few days. My body's aching. It was one of those days. It's like, if there was ever a time my body's saying, Joe, you need some rest, this is it.
Right.
But I was like, no, I'm not going to listen to that. I'm going to go sit with it. And then I just went and meditated. And I sat there for half hour, 45 minutes, and just allowed everything to come up. Now, if people don't do that, all of these thoughts, I'm too tired for today, my body's too sore to do this, all these essentially not good enoughs, or reasons not to do, or reasons not to take action, they dominate our thought process before we've even got started.
Right.
And they affect every interaction we have. We're already coming at it from a space of not good enough, can't do, from negativity.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have that space in the morning, you do a complete clearing process where I sit there consciously rewriting it. So I go, no, this isn't true. This is where I'm at right now. This is what I'm going to do. Is that something you go through in the morning?
Yeah. Ultimately, I have my own practice where I just sit with everything that comes up. So Vipassana is that meditation practice that I do use personally. And one piece of the equation is actually A Course in Miracles right now. We were doing this collective reading. I don't know. Have you been keeping up with that?
I was meant to be involved, but
Okay.
I think I got sidestepped here. So
okay.
yeah.
I don't think you have. I think you just forgot.
No,
But it's okay. It's okay.
What what the fuck happened?
I mean, it's still
No
available.
miracles for Joe?
It's still available.
No miracles for Joe.
So, it reprograms your mind. Ultimately, it's just an interesting thing, because right now I seem to put the words on the things that I've experienced before. And I couldn't really quite put the language to the experiences that I had in the past. And right now, it's like that course is ultimately oriented around programming your conditioning, or reprogramming your conditioning, and completely wiping out everything that we've been conditioned to. For example, about your thoughts, it's like these thoughts are not mine, or just everything that I see is not real. And you're kind of just have to look around and say those things and observe everything in your environment, and just acknowledge that those thoughts are not mine. These things around me are not real. All the thoughts that I'm experiencing are from the past. And just kind of looking at the world around you from a different angle gives you this opportunity to start questioning everying.
Can I just pull you back a little bit?
Yeah.
So for anyone that doesn't really understand what A Course in Miracles is, can you kind of give an overview of what it is?
It's ultimately, as I said, it's kind of repatterning your way of thinking. So it has a bit of for some people, it has a bit of a religious connotation. It's not a religious book at all whatsoever. It mentions God, it mentions source, it mentions whatever else there is, but it has no religious connotation at all whatsoever. It's a practical guide to undo the conditioning that we have picked up as we have been going through life. Because, so the example, when we are born, when you look at babies, right? And then the way they see the world, they're seeing completely different things than we do. You see those eyes and that glaze in their eyes, that they're seeing things completely differently. And then we tell them, it's a table. And they're like, no, fuck that. It's the energetic structure that is talking to me, and I fuck you and your table. So that's kind of the mind space that we're in. And then we get to condition ourselves, or our society conditions us into this purely material environment. And most parents, most of us, are never trained to see beyond that, to see the subtleties of our reality. We just get attached to material state and ignore anything that is beyond that completely, because we're just not trained to see that anymore.
So essentially what you're saying there, so obviously like a table, it's an arbitrary name for
Right.
an arbitrary thing that exists. And we use language to simplify our environment, right?
Right.
Language is very necessary for that. So we can communicate and have an understanding and navigate. But that being said, we need to understand that below that level, the table isn't necessarily a table. It's just something we've decided unanimously that it is.
Right.
Right.
It's a structure. It's a mental structure that we attach ourselves to the material world to feel more comfortable about what's happening in our environment. Because if we're just afloat, our identities, our egos, that's exactly what the purpose that it serves, that we literally ground ourselves into our physical reality to feel safe. Because most people are not safe in the unknown.
Because it's predictable, right? There's certain laws that become predictable.
Yeah.
Right?
And I'm not saying that, it's everybody's journey is different. But for me, the biggest thing right now that I'm looking for, and the only thing that I'm asking from the world, universe, God, whatever you want to call it, is the courage and the strength to keep peeling back the layers of the identity that I created. And all those layers. So whatever identity I hold on to, whatever the attachments that I hold on to in my world that's surrounding me, at some point they're no longer going to serve me. At this point they might, and then as I move forward, they no longer serve me. Yet very few of us actually reflect upon that, and very few of us go layers deeper to keep going and going and going. Because right now, no matter how good you have, if you go deeper, you're going to have things just as good and more and more and more. We could just kind of get too comfortable and get latched onto these pieces of our identity, pieces of the equation in our external world that we just latch onto for the rest of our lives, and then just end up in the grave without having accomplished everything that we wanted. And
I get it. So what I'm hearing from you is...
That got grim real quick.
That got deep quick. Yeah. So there's the physical world, the physical reality, which is essentially arbitrary, which is something that we use to navigate our way around the universe, right? Then our ego then attaches to these things because that's what makes us feel safe and gives us a sense of an ability to navigate that space. Then a layer above that, I guess, is like the identity that we forge for ourselves over time. So as a human being, I decide based on the things that I do in the world who I am as an individual.
Right.
So
we box ourselves, and so we make it easy for others to understand what box to put us in.
Exactly, because they want to understand about who AJ is. What can he help me with in my environment? Oh, he can help me with nutrition. Oh, he can help me with coaching. He can optimize me.
How tall are you?
Yeah. Oh, the favorite question. How tall are you, AJ? No, I don't give a fuck. I don't answer. I don't actually care.
That's actually something that we chatted about last week that I really wanted to bring up as well, is how people are trying to relate with another human being through something that is really, they're asking the question for the first time. And the person who's hearing that question, like for example, myself, how tall are you? I've heard that question thousands of times. And for me, obviously, the reaction to that question is completely different than for the other person.
What's your usual reaction? Just share that. No?
my usual reaction is, oh, fuck off.
No, I preferred your other one the other day that you gave at the charity event.
Oh,
it's
gotcha. But I'm 6'8", but I have a tiny penis.
It really shakes the room, that one. It's good fun.
It does.
I enjoy
It does. Or, oh, you're tall. It's like, yeah, but my cock is tiny. So that's one of those things that really people want to relate with you. It's like when they're asking where you're from, where did you go to school? It's like, what's your favorite sports team? It's just they want to place you somewhere so they can actually feel comfortable around you, and so it's tribal. It's like you're a tribe member.
Yeah.
And we had this conversation where I've been having these chats with people where they approach me and ask me where I'm from, and ask these questions. How long have you been in Bali? Because it's obviously we're here in Bali. And I just go, all right, so you are, I know that you're trying to connect, but by asking this question at this point, you're actually disconnecting with me, because I've heard this question so many times, and in order for me to have a deep conversation and actually want to engage with you, I want to start with something deeper. And right now, I just automatically shut myself off because I know that I feel like this is not going to go anywhere. And I don't want to waste my time. As you were saying, it's like if you just get placed in their automatic responses and automatic reactions, it's like, I don't want to be in somebody else's automation. Yeah. I want to rewrite that automation because I don't want to be in my automation all the time.
I don't want to put myself in a box, so I definitely don't want you to put me in one either.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting. So it's like there's this, you're trying to peel back the layers. You're on a mission to do so.
Right.
So by somebody essentially creating that level of small talk, they are less interested in those layers because they're already trying to put you in the box. And you're trying to seek more fluidity essentially in your environment, right? So it's kind of counterproductive in that respect. Yeah. So I guess this was based on the conversation we have. What was his name? I remember when you were sharing that earlier on that day. Finding a middle ground, because there's also like sometimes small talk, it's kind of like it bridges into like a deeper conversation. I guess it's finding the line of, because I hate small talk. I'm at that point where I want to have deep and interesting conversations, but I also recognize that sometimes some people need to kind of open up with some smaller things.
Bridge. But that's the thing. If you were to open up a conversation with, it's like, what's your purpose? Or how did you overcome your daddy issues? It's like,
if I walked up to you right now and said, what did your mum do to you when you were a child?
I would love that.
You would. Yeah, but it would take some front. It would take some front. I'd be really impressed with any man that walks up to you and looks up at you and goes, so, tell me about the relationship with your mother. How did that go for you when you were little? It's a high risk move, I've got to say.
I guess it is. That's something that I was recently pointed out to me. It's like, when I'm being me, I'm just being me. But for most people, I'm this intimidating large human doing things that are just unusual, So I kind of, obviously we take for granted the way we move around the world, and especially, I'd never thought about that. My good friend David Hans Barker, that he just said,
Hat boy.
Hat boy.
Sorry, Dave, I had to get that in there.
Oh, that's good. So he pointed something.
Inside
jokes. Yeah. He pointed something out that women see you as especially if I'm being a bit unconscious of my actions and I'm hurting someone unconsciously, it might seem as an attack on anyone. If I'm in a shitty mood and I'm just being very direct and I just don't want to engage in pleasantries and I'm just being extremely direct and just straight to the point, that for most people that comes off as rude and intimidating and they contract.
But that's also based on their approach and how safe they feel in their environment. So I guess a question I'd have there is, to what extent are you responsible for other people's feelings?
I'm not. In a way, I'm not, but in order to engage in our society, truly engage with humans in our society, you kind of have to take quite a bit of consideration.
Yeah, I would say there's no right or wrong answer necessarily. I just kind of feel there's kind of two sides to that coin. There's like you don't want to pointlessly upset people, but on the flip side of that, you're allowed to authentically be you, and it's how much do you have to account for other people feeling intimidated by you? And it's just a question, because I'm interested to know what your perspective is.
It is interesting. So that's something that I wasn't aware of at all, because I'm just living in my body, just going through my own human experience,
just doing you stuff,
just doing me stuff. Yeah. And once that got brought to my attention, I kind of started asking questions. Where can I potentially be, I guess, softer, more approachable, or if I feel like it, where do I actually put people off by just doing me, which is, and people who I would like to relate with potentially, is just that they see me differently than I actually am. Because probably, you obviously know me, and the audience doesn't, and you have a certain image of me, a certain idea of me at this point, because you're just judging me through your lens of understanding, through your lens of experiences, and you're trying to fit me into a box once again.
Sure.
Right now. So, and when most people, look at anyone, they kind of size them up, they make judgments, make assumptions, and you would never think that, we're gonna sing medicine songs on a Friday night and have a probably 9:30 p.m. bedtime, and then wake up at 4 to meditate.
Or that there would be a restaurant, you would be standing in the middle, I'm coming to meet you. I shout "Dad" from out the other side of the restaurant as loud as I possibly can, and then run and jump into your arms like a small child. Most people wouldn't expect that to happen.
Exactly.
But we find it fucking funny.
Oh, it's hilarious. It just creates so many questions.
It just doesn't get old, does it? It's like, what? So Dad, but are they in a relationship? Are they just weird? What?
Is he actually his father?
Yeah. Yeah. I think back to what you were saying though, it's like, we have these prejudices.
Right.
We all have these, and like they're designed from an evolutionary standpoint to make sense of our environment. So if I see a certain tribal member and I recognize the tribal markings, I know this guy might try and stick a spear in me, and this is why we have racial prejudices. This is why we have different prejudices against different genders, everything, male, female, every difference we could possibly have.
For sure.
We put people into a box based on previous experiences and previous exposure to try and, in the quickest way possible, make a survival.
Right.
Make sense of it for survival. And the problem with this is that it creates a lot of false realities.
Right.
Because the perception most people have of you is completely false.
Right.
Like, you're a massive goof. Like, like you're such a goofy dude.
Yeah,
like, you're just hilarious. But you could be stood there, like, looking really serious.
Right.
And it would be very easy to believe you're, like, this stoic fucking arsehole.
For sure.
But you're actually just, like, a big, soft goofball having a laugh, which is great.
Yeah.
So I guess that this is when it comes back to the fluidity. This is why it's so important for... And this is the peeling back of the layers is so valuable and so important.
And this comes back to the practice of meditation. And this comes back to Vipassana and me sitting with that stuff to see reality as it is. Not as I want it to be, not as I've been conditioned to see it, but as it is. Because when you look at human interactions, when I look at human interactions, I see so many layers of masks and complexes that are ultimately covering the true selves, the true humans that are beyond that, the true souls that are beyond that. And it's just more and more I engage in that, it just becomes more and more unpleasant for me to engage in that because I have to peel back those layers. And most people don't want to be seen in their true, unadulterated, pure self. And them being seen and knowing them that I see them in that state, it makes them uncomfortable. It makes them feel vulnerable, of course. And then if they're not willing to engage in that, I just kind of stopped engaging in it.
Yeah, and this is, I guess, when you start talking about being clear with your energy, like, and the more you grow as an individual, and this is obviously a common theme by people that engage in serious self-development work in whatever modality it is, you can't unsee certain things.
Right.
And like we spoke about this before, like when you know that somebody's lying to themselves about where they're at, the smile that appears and then falls off their face immediately, they're probably not even conscious that they're doing that.
Right.
But you pick up on it.
Right.
Once you are so experienced and peeling back your own layers, you can't help but see it within other people. And then what happens is you don't want to listen to the bullshit.
Right.
You can't be bothered. You can't be bothered with the ulterior motives. Like we've all got that person that will send you a message, hey, how's it going? 2 seconds later, they're about to pop up with a request.
Right.
You know it's coming.
Yeah.
But they're probably not even conscious of how obvious this is. And once that you see it, you can't be bothered to engage with it. Right.
And yeah, it's so interesting to actually understand. So the reason why I sit in silence is that exact reason, that I'm able to see so much more than we do see with a naked eye. And when, for example, 10 days, right? 10 days seems like such a long period of time to sit in silence. And especially if you haven't done that before. But it's something that I really, really like understanding right now, and how I'm seeing the world completely differently, is that after those 10 days, you still have 355 left for the rest of the year. And you're not going to live those 355 as 355. You're going to double your output. You're going to live that as at least 710, 1,065, 4x, 5x, 10x your output, and see so many more details than you would otherwise. And that's something that really, really just drives me to keep peeling those layers, because life becomes I always say that I'm going to live until 150, right? And because I'm taking care of myself, I'm, of my biology, all that kind of stuff. And at this point, I don't care anymore to live that long because my day feels like a week. And it's becoming more and more prolonged because I see so much action happens in one single day. And because I'm so conscious of details of it, becoming more and more conscious of details of it. And it just becomes such a fun adventure to engage with the world because everything is of interest. Everything is of exploration. I don't have to manipulate my external reality to elicit feelings that live inside me anymore. I can go directly into the direct experience and without manipulating my external reality of making a certain amount of money or traveling somewhere or having this ecstatic experience, which I still will engage in by choice, but it's not necessary anymore to bring out the feelings that live within me.
I think that's really powerful. So like the analogy that comes to mind there is that you're not necessarily trying to extend the film, you're just trying to add more frames per second.
Precisely. Yeah.
And
yeah. Literally.
That was just like popped into my head,
Mm-hmm.
and that's exactly what presence is.
Right.
And so a real world example of that would be for me. So when I first left to go traveling and decided to sack off the UK and all the rest of it, I remember having regrets that I didn't do it sooner because so many amazing things happened. But one thing that was clear was the opportunities that came my way, they only came my way because I'd been through the experiences necessary to see that they existed.
Right.
Now this happens on a micro scale every single day. There are opportunities, moments of joy, moments of happiness, little moments of laughter that are there to be obtained and experienced and enjoyed. But if we are completely oblivious to them and don't have the presence to pay attention, they just pass by and we never even know they're there.
We just conflate everything. We just kind of throw everything into one bucket. It was just another day. It's really, I mean, I'm sure you've experienced that where you're waiting for the day to end.
Always.
And
all the time when I've been doing things I don't like.
Right, exactly. You're just looking to somehow kill the time so the day ends. And once you switch your mindset from enduring the day to experiencing the day, it changes everything completely because then you're in every moment, whatever it is, you're just experiencing life to its fullest. You're not anxious about the future. You're not worried about the past, and you're simply living in the present, as cliche as that sounds, in the present moment. And there's so much beauty in it that obviously I didn't appreciate up until now, and I still forget at times where I get caught up in these currents that the world brings me into. And then just right now, the timeline, as it used to be this long, now it's so contracted that I notice that pretty much immediately and then kind of call myself out on it and laugh about it. And I stop beating myself. That's another piece, that the self-love component, the inner critic component that used to say, oh, you're such a piece of shit because you just reacted this way, even though you've been doing all this work, all this meditation. That would be the dialogue that I would have. Right now, I truly cannot do anything that would make me stop appreciating and respecting myself anymore. And that's something that just landed this past year for me. And for the first time, I truly can say that I'm never going to take any love away from myself because I'm in the position where I know I'm a flawed human being, and it's not conditional. Especially for me. And that allows me to love other humans unconditionally as well, which I was never able to do. I would break them apart. I would just tear them down because I would see all these little things that I just don't like, which I wouldn't like about myself, and just peel the layers of them, just like I'm peeling the layers of identity. I would peel the layers of their confidence and point that out to them as well. And it's just break them down piece by piece to, I guess, unconsciously make myself feel better about myself.
I can totally relate to that.
So
and it comes from that inner critic. I had this really weird relationship with my inner critic because I had found it was so linked to my ambition, because I've always been an ambitious person. I always wanted to achieve more. And I remember being grateful for this inner critic, this part of myself that beats myself up when I'm not doing, because I saw it as a driving force to get to where I want to be. And I thought, fucking hell, I can't get rid of that inner critic. How am I going to whip myself into shape?
Right.
But it's only been for me, like over the course of the last year, that I've really shifted on that and come to a more loving space with it.
Right.
And I'm 10 times more motivated from a loving space than I am a critic, which is weird.
Which is counterintuitive.
It's so counterintuitive. I was like, I need whips to encourage myself. But when it comes to a place of acceptance, is go, no, sometimes I have shit days. Sometimes I don't perform at my best. That's okay. You know? And once that love isn't conditional, then for some reason, it's like, rather than having this rebellious inner child that's saying, no, fuck off, Joe, I don't want to do this today. I just kind of go, I'm going to put in some effort anyway, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. That kind of brings up another piece of the equation, is how we tend to boxes again. So that kind of brings the conversation in full circle in a way, that the way we define our purpose in life, right, is by looking to accomplish something, looking to create something in the world. But the reality of the matter is, I had this conversation with a friend of mine this morning, that's not really true. Like, all we're seeking is love, and to love ourselves and others, and be in that state of peace. And because we're looking to achieve things, we have this idea that once we get to that point, if this then that mentality, you know, if this happens, then I'm going to be happy. Once we get to that point, we're going to be loved, and we're going to love ourselves. Because that's what achievement does for us.
Yeah, it's have I done enough to be loved yet? Right. Have I made enough money to be loved yet? Have I got enough Instagram likes to be loved yet?
Yeah.
That's really what it is.
Yeah, and that was so interesting for me. Is like, then also, it's the discernment of you being on your path and aligned with the path that you're supposed to be walking. And there are so many potential paths. When people are saying, I don't know where to start, just start fucking anywhere. Just get some repetitions in, get exposed to the world, not think, it's like, not read about the marathon, actually go and run the marathon. And once you do that, you realize, all right, so I don't fucking want to run marathons. They suck. And then you move on to, it's like, maybe I want to do sprints, or I don't want to be running in the first place. I might try cycling or swimming, you know? So it's just putting yourself out to experience the world. And I'm just so grateful for that, because I feel like in the past decade, I took a crash course on life. I mean, I'm fortunate enough to have created somehow, I was completely unconscious of it, but somehow I visited over 50 countries. I lived in 6 or 7, whatever. And it just gave me so much exposure and so many different areas of life that I got to experience, that I realized, all right, I don't want to go horizontal in this. I want to keep going vertical. I want to keep going deeper. And that's why I kept peeling those layers of identity, where, you know, for people, sometimes it's difficult to put me into a box, because different people know me from different circles. It's like, oh, I was in the anti-aging industry. I was in the biohacking industry. I was in the fitness industry. I was in, personal development, coaching, all that kind of stuff. And all those come together. But a lot of people know me from just that one area. They met me in that one setting. So it's very interesting to see how they expect me to be consistent with that one identity, and then when they see that there's something beyond that, they get confused. It's like, what's that all about? Why don't you just stick to one thing? Because I don't fucking want to.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. I truly believe one of my biggest superpowers has just been just doing shit.
Yeah.
Like, kind of irrespective of the outcome. And I think that's largely to do with my past and the kind of criminal activities I was involved in when I was younger. It definitely creates there's no aversion to risk.
Right.
You know, it's like, I'm willing to do these things. I'm willing to make myself look stupid. I'm willing to be a beginner and like get laughed at. You know, I'm cool with all of those things. That's a superpower to me. And the other one that you touched on there, and this I say frequently, open-mindedness is a superpower, because I believe it is open-mindedness that stops us attaching ourselves to a given identity or a particular layer of the onion.
Curiosity. I've always been curious. That's what's saved me ultimately from crystallizing, because by the time we're 35 years old, 95% of our actions are completely habitual, and our identities are crystallized to a point where just to undo that crystallization, it takes so much fucking work. So right now, if you're listening to this and you're still in your 20s, start practicing awareness of your actions, of your behaviors. And as I said, there is a practice called Vipassana that allows you to directly experience the layers of it and the deeper layers of it. And it's absolutely free, and it's the biggest gift to the world that has ever been given. So that's, if you truly want to grow and you're interested in, personal development, that's the thing that is going to take you there.
I couldn't agree. I could not agree more. The biggest thing in my whirlwind of travel that I was missing was just my deep meditation practice, which I've had on and off for an extended period of time. But it is a sanctuary, and I think people really struggle with meditation when they first start because it's uncomfortable. Yeah. You have to. I say open-mindedness is a superpower, but another huge superpower and a huge thing that bridges the gap is the ability to be with what is. Which is something everybody struggles with. If you feel shitty, especially men, we don't want to be with those shitty feelings. Nobody ever does. But
let's fix this problem now.
It's like, how do I get rid of the sadness and replace it with happiness? It's like, no, that's actually not the game. The game is to be in the sadness and be okay with that. And as an example, and the sooner we can just experience for the sake of experiencing and be fluid without having necessarily to have to change everything, the easier it is to peel back those layers.
Man, it's such a powerful thing to actually get to a point that we get to where you're able to see how many things you actually start repeating and how many of the same behaviors you start engaging in, and then you make a conscious decision to really ask yourself, do I want to do this or do I not? Because from my perspective, from my standpoint, there are only two things that people struggle with, really. Or the reason why people struggle is because they're not doing these two things. They're not able to plan ahead into the future, and then they're not able to reflect, or they don't know how. And you can really correlate the success of individuals to how far into the future they're willing and able to look, and the size and the grandiosity of the vision that they have into the future. Because if you're thinking about the next week or a football game, and you're looking for one, you're going from one experience of like just sports event to another, and that's the only thing that you're looking forward to. I mean, let's be honest, you're probably not accomplishing much.
You're going to chuck your best players in, they might get injured or tired before the end of the season, and then you give out before the end, right?
Right. So it's an interesting piece that I just keep learning and peeling back, and it is so endless, and I love that endlessness of it because I know that very few people are going to be willing to go there and really sit with what is, not what you want to be, not what the illusion of it that you've created, but really things that are. And that kind of brings us to the conversation that we wanted to have about emotions and processing amongst men. I remember us mentioning that. That's interesting.
That's been coming up a lot recently.
Yeah.
It's a very common thing. It's a topic that me and Brian, we got into it a little bit as well, and it's just so prominent right now. I think it's a conversation that needs to be had frequently. Right. Yeah. So I'd love you to speak into that a little bit and your point of view on men and emotions.
I feel like just society in general does not know what emotion is, because we have lost the understanding of emotion as we describe it. For example, depression, right? When you think of depression, what do you think of?
Me for quite a lot of my life.
Yeah. Okay.
Sad Joe. For me, it was always a feeling of hopelessness. It was a feeling of overwhelm, a feeling of a hole that I couldn't dig myself out of. And it was always something that would come and it would almost seemingly just disappear just as quick. That it would appear, I'd be in it for a while, and then one day something would happen and it would go, and I'd be like, where the fuck did that go? I feel all right again. What happened? Right. It would feel there was such a victim mentality around it, and it was all consuming, completely consuming for me.
That's the thing. I feel like it's consuming because I've suffered from with depression for a while as well, and it was all consuming because I didn't really know what that was, because there's this feeling, this overwhelming feeling that is happening right now, and I don't fucking know how to respond to it. So I become reactive. I shell up, and what is my natural response is to contract and fight it away and try to overcome it. Let's push it away. And I would spend debilitated for a day or two or longer, and just not being able to obviously get anything done, first of all. Second of all, I would just be a miserable fuck. And when I realized, all right, so what is depression? This, all we think about when we say depression is it's just a word. It's this elusive concept of something that is just feels unpleasant, right? It's like a monster under somebody's bed. You know, when you're a child, if a parent is helping a child to see the monster under the bed, what are they going to do? They're going to guide them with them, you know, hold them and guide them to look with them under the bed that there is no monster. And once you look at it, all right, oh great, so there's no monster, I can sleep now. Same with depression. So we have this elusive concept of what it is, but we're not willing to directly look at it, because at the core of it, any feeling is just a sensation. It's a sensation that resides within our body, somewhere within our body, and it feels super overwhelming in the beginning, but the more you become aware of it, the more you realize that, oh, maybe it's just this feeling, this sensation in the pit of my stomach. It's like this heaviness in the pit of my stomach. And then the more you zoom out to it, the kind of smaller it gets. And if you allow that to fully pass, because what is emotion? Emotion is just energy in motion passing through your body. The only time it stays within your body when we contract and hold on to it, when we identify with it. And it's like, I'm depressed. It's like, great, you just named your dog and it just became yours.
And you just categorized yourself, put yourself in a particular box, and now you're going to stay in that box until further notice.
Precisely. If you just said, if you observed, it's like, there is a sensation within my body of this heavy feeling in the pit of my stomach, and I'm just observing it. I'm going to feel it fully and not identify with it. It's not mine. It's just an emotion passing through my body, and that's all it is. You would overcome without directly trying to overcome it like this, because us fighting it and identifying with it just extends the timeline of it lingering around.
100%.
But if we just fully feel it, and as funny as that sounds, we're just, because we medicated ourselves, we have all these stimulants in our lives, and we stopped feeling our bodies on a deep sensitive level because we identified sensitivity with, or conflated sensitivity with, weakness. And amongst men especially, that's been the case. It's like, if you're sensitive, if you're too emotional and you feel things, you are not a man. You're a bitch, right? And that's very unfortunate, because actually it allows you to accomplish so much more, to be so much more capable human being and a true fucking man when you're able to feel things fully without contracting, without fighting them. That's what a real man is.
Yeah, but you're not taking a defensive posture. I think, like, to touch on your depression thing, that was very real for me. So I used to suffer with depression, and I would categorize myself as somebody that suffers with depression. Right now, you'll probably notice I was like, I used to suffer with depression. Like, I don't say I get depressed. I still have low days. I have days where I'm not feeling fantastic, but I don't put myself in that box anymore. Now, there's a lot of different overlapping factors there. So, of course, there's a lot of biological factors at play, you know, probably doing too much cocaine, probably smoking too much weed, probably taking too many tramadols. You know, all of those things that probably weren't particularly conducive for not being depressed.
That might contribute to that.
I would say they would play a role for sure. And I was also in a very toxic environment, blah, blah, blah. All things that I later changed. But what happens is, once you categorize yourself, once you put yourself in that box, then there's like a level of confirmation bias here, which kind of like then just feeds into this loop. And now you're in the box, right? And I had to slowly peel away the layers of what this depression is, got rid of some of the biological factors, you know, got rid of some of the drugs, moved out of my toxic environment, you know, all of those things that really did help. But now there's still times where I feel depressed, but I would now categorize it more as just feeling low. And because I'm able to check in with myself and I'm comfortable with sitting with my emotions, I can actually discern what's happening. Am I just feeling low energy? Have I not had enough sleep? Have I not got enough sunlight? You know, have I had quite draining social interactions? There's all these really subtle things. But when you start to learn to feel again, that level of attunement allows you to discern what are the positives and what are the negatives in your life.
And that's back to those frames that we add through sitting in silence and sitting with ourselves, where we become less and less triggered by everything that comes up in our reality. Because the more of these parts of your identity, the more pieces in the world that you have that are making you uncomfortable and making you reactive, the more you're just, the weaker you are, really. Because if you're not able to sit with sensations that are within your body, and the analogy that I always give to people, I ask them actually questions like, what happens to the ocean when the storm happens somewhere in a part of the ocean? It's like, well, I guess it gets a bit messy. I guess it has some debris that carries around, and it's just a storm, right? Yeah. Well, yeah. So can it hurt the ocean? No, because it's happening within the ocean. That's the same thing. It's like, you are the ocean. As a human being, you are the ocean. Any emotion that is passing by is just a storm somewhere within you. That's it. It cannot hurt you. It cannot truly destroy you, because, let me correct myself. It can hurt you a little bit, but just a part of you. It cannot destroy you, because you are holding that within yourself. And because it's happening, your system is capable of receiving that and processing that.
Yeah, and it's like,
simple as that.
I think I always look at it as, when people ask me about meditation, everyone kind of gets so caught up in the mechanics of it. It's, oh, I'm going to do the breathing. Oh, I just really struggle with it. Oh, I just don't get along with it. So many people just drop it so early because it's in that just discomfort phase.
Right.
The reason you're dropping it is because you are feeling discomfort of being with yourself.
Right.
That's the first thing.
I'm bored.
So please, bored. Like, please recognize that you just have a level of discomfort by being with yourself.
Right.
So then you actually want to source outside stimulus. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is, and this is like a question I ask people, and similar to what you just said about the ocean, is like, do you want to be a victim of everything that happens around you? Because that's what it is. You're getting to choose to be a survivor or a victim. Do you want to be that solid pole that stays true to your path no matter what the hell is going? Or do you want to be that ship that just gets thrown around the ocean and smashed about into rocks by every driver that cuts you up, or everybody that says something mean to you that's kind of offensive? Like, what do you want?
Right.
You know?
That's another analogy that I give to people as well. If you are on the shore of the ocean and the waves are breaking, on the shore. If you're staying on the shore, you're getting trashed around by the waves, right? You're just getting taken out, and the impact that you're receiving is pretty fucking strong, right? But the deeper you swim into the ocean, although the ocean is unknown and you don't know it's not comfortable because you're not on the shore, the more you actually are able to see of the way the waves are moving, and see the people that are on the shore getting thrashed around, and kind of gives you so much more perspective and understanding of how the world works. So you just get this higher understanding from higher level of consciousness, where you're just seeing things more in detail. That's it. That's all it is. So instead of being reactive to the things and completely at effect, you can create a ripple from the position that you're in. So the further you swim, the more uncomfortable that is, but then the more you see, and the more you're able to realign your external reality with your internal state.
Yeah, I think this kind of like tees on perfectly to like a business context.
Right.
Because business is one big fucking storm. Let's
Right.
be totally honest.
Yep.
It's a big whirlwind of madness and opportunities and your own shadows and your own bullshit coming up.
And the phrase that you brought back into my awareness was, there are no business problems. They're just personal problems that affect business. And that's literally it. And we talked about this as well. It's like how there are probably only three areas of like just the most real mirrors, the most challenging mirrors, and the most growth inducing area. So that's meditation, relationships, and business. Those three things just are going to expose the most horrendous parts of yourself that you absolutely can't stand and you don't want to see. And it's so uncomfortable. It's like this, I call it this emotional hangover that you have, that when you see something about yourself, this scummy part of yourself that you're just like, oh, fuck. I really did not want to see this. And you just feel like, quite frankly, like a piece of shit. But then you accepting that, and still back to self-love. If you are able to unconditionally love yourself, you're not going to take away that from yourself. And then that's going to grow into an integrated part of you where it no longer triggers you. You no longer have to hide it from anyone else in your environment. And you can actually have a deep conversation with another human being, heart to heart, without putting a mask on and protecting that part of yourself so they don't see it.
I think, yeah, that definitely resonates. I think if you can master those 3 areas of life,
Right.
then you are going to be good.
Yeah.
Like if your relationship's a shit show right now, I'm telling you right now, that means there are parts of yourself that you don't want to fucking look at. That's a reality. If your business is a shit show right now, there are parts of you that are a shit show and that you don't want to look at.
Right.
And if you don't, or you have an inability to meditate, there are parts of you that you don't want to look at that are a complete shit show right now.
Right.
And that's a reality.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to come from a critical space.
No,
it's
not
just
at all.
a level of awareness.
It's a fact.
It's just
It's
a
a
simple fact.
And
Yeah.
that's again back to seeing reality as it is. It's just the reality. If it's triggering for you, you know that you're not comfortable with it. If you're seeing that, it's like, oh no, fuck that. I'm not that. Well, if you're being reactive, well, clearly it is triggering you. And the reason why it's triggering you because you're not comfortable to sit with it. And then you can justify it. And it's funny because I used to do that all the time. That I would find a reason. And Dave really landed this for me. It wasn't directed at me, but it was just this phrase that just stuck with me. If you're looking for complexity, you're looking for excuses. If you're looking for simplicity, you're looking for results. And that just
big up Dave. Big up Dave on that one.
Yeah. And it just landed for me so deeply. That kind of summarized the whole ordeal. Is like we try to complexify the internal, the mommy daddy issues, the excuses, the external sources, and just outsource our decisions, now outsource our responsibility to somebody else instead of taking full radical responsibility of every single thing that's happened for us in our lives, and understanding that, hey, I have contributed to this happening. And no matter how shitty that person that your relationship is, or another person in your business is, or your boss is, you are creating your own reality, and you're attracting this shit into your life right now at this moment. So own up to it and fucking change it.
Get past the denial.
Yeah.
Get past the denial.
Get past. And I understand, again, right now, I'm just so fucking grateful to have developed the awareness, and I still have blind spots, just obviously. And I get so many things pointed out to me still on a consistent basis. It just becomes less and less triggering, less and less jarring, less and less uncomfortable, because it's just the good old sensation of whether there's that depressive feeling or that emotional hangover or what have you. It just becomes familiar. It's like, okay, I know this. I know this already, and I'm going to feel it fully, and then go past it, not contract. And I know that I'm going to integrate that as a part of myself. So I'm going to be more and more comfortable to engage with the world, and less things are going to be able to trigger.
Yeah, and you're back to those 2 key things again. You're being open-minded, which is key. You have to be open to all of these things, and then you have to have the ability to sit with that level of discomfort. Right.
Another one, good old Dave, from good old Dave. It's like becoming immovable and loving. Those are the only 2 things as humans that we need to master. Become completely immovable by everything that is happening in the world, and then loving towards every single entity and human that crosses your path. And if we master those 2 things, man, life is good.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And that's absolutely a path I've been on for a while now as well. You know, like the loving one has been something I've had to consciously work on.
Right.
Like I've often told people when I first left the UK, like when I was 28, because of all the toxicity I was trying to flush out of my soul with everything that I'd been involved in, I was really trying to focus on compassion and empathy. Right. They're things that I had to rebuild within myself.
Oh man. And because we have that emotional autistic
we do
background of us shutting down all the emotions and caring about any other humans but ourselves sometimes.
Yeah, just to give some context to that, we kind of like unite over this. We used to have like this robotic kind of fuck it all, it doesn't matter, you know, kind of approach to everything.
Emotions don't exist, we just need to get shit done.
Logical thinking will win throughout.
And especially when you're reinforced in our society, constantly reinforced for your logic, for your mind, and then constantly punished for showing emotions, you kind of gaslight yourself. That is like, oh, I just need to stick to this. Mm-hmm. Especially when it comes to, I was having this conversation actually today about money. Most of us have some money issues, right? And when it comes to money, and us seeing our bank account, and then we just need to grind more. It's like, if I want to make more money, I need to exchange my time for this amount of money, so I get to the point where I'm going to get to the point, and just take this absolutely logical approach. most of us don't think that, oh, I just have to realign my internal reality to allow the world around me to rearrange itself. It just sounds fucking woo-woo and doesn't make sense, but I just can't deny that that's a fact. That's how it's been happening.
Yeah.
And I've seen it so many times that it's just ridiculous I just can no longer deny this. No matter how logical I am, I can no longer deny this because it's happened to me so many times.
Yeah, it's happened to me countless times now. It's like as soon as I just realign myself with what feels true to me and what feels good, then shit just falls in my lap.
Right.
Like ridiculously easily. I was having this conversation. This literally happened yesterday. So Brian came over he wanted to introduce me to this crypto guy. So he's working on a load of different crypto projects. Obviously, I've got a crypto marketing company.
Right.
The biggest problem they have is marketing because it's full of assholes that overcharge and underdeliver. Right. And we're trying to do it from a very integrous space with clear reporting, blah, blah, blah. A little plug for my crypto marketing company. If you need some marketing for your project, we got you covered. But yeah, I've just been focusing on getting myself nice and clear. Solid meditation practice that morning. He walks through the door and I was like, oh, what have you been up to today? Turns out I already know this guy. He starts telling me about this tech that he's been creating around NFTs, which solves the exact problem that I'm dealing with for a client.
Nice.
And then I brought him into the meeting that night. I said, oh, do you want to do a bit of brainstorming? You happy to just jump on this call? I was like, I can't promise there's a deal at the end of it, but you're right to just jump on and give some ideas. He was like, yeah, I'd love to. He's like, actually, do you know what? You could jump in on my project and give some of your ideas because I think you could add value. Within about 20 minutes, he's working on my project. I'm now working on his. And there was no grind involved in that. There was just me getting myself to a space, where I was just flowy. Then after that, Brian comes along. He's speaking to a guy that is dealing with something very similar. We jumped on that call. We can then do some business. And then just to top it off, they then needed a particular investor from a particular space who wanted to help out the health and wellness industry. I just had a voice note from a guy about 4 hours before saying, look, I'm just working this new company. We want to deploy capital into crypto projects that exclusively are focused on health and wellness. And I was just like, within the space of 4 hours. You can't make this
shit up. Yeah.
Within the space of 4 hours. And that required zero grind. It required me just being aligned, having authentic conversations with real people from a loving space, trying to help people, trying to connect people. And it all just fell in my lap, you know?
Yeah. And that's another thing that really shifted for me over the years because based on my conditioning, the way we roll in Lithuania, that's where I was born and raised, was we're just this recently independent country when I was born in it, and it has this Soviet mentality. So in order for you to have the tallest building in the city you don't build the tallest building in the city. You just destroy every building that is taller than yours. and if you win, somebody else has to lose. And that was my mentality for most of my life. And repatterning that and actually seeing outside of yourself where it's like it's just not me. It's like let me make these $100 million. It's like no, let me help 10 or 100 million people. And once you shift that mindset and shift that mentality to service and to something outside of yourself and outside of your realm of survival, everything starts falling into your lap. Because right now, the projects that I'm involved in, exclusively, every single one of them are exclusively aligned with educating people, and they're service-based. They're based on helping people be better do better in life. And when I reflect upon that, it's just ever since I pivoted onto that, that's when things started truly aligning.
Yeah, and we've got an epic group of people around us right now. Like our circle is pretty fucking cool. Yeah. I mean, so many cool people. Yeah. And business just isn't really hard because there's just such a level of alignment with everybody. Like Brian, the classic example. So we're discussing this NFT project, which is of course your business as well, right? There was no conversation really about the business side of things. Right. Initially, it was like, obviously I knew about the project, what they were doing. Right. There was just total alignment. Yeah. There was no question of like, oh, I need you to sign these papers before we start work on it. It's like, I know that me and Brian are going to work this out. It's just a done deal because we know each other. Right. It's like, I know what Brian's about. I know how focused he is and what his passion is and where he's orientated. He wants to add value and help people. He knows that I'm the same. So the business discussion always comes later.
You're both sociopaths and you might be lying through your teeth.
Either that. Yeah, I mean, that is an option. I might stab you in the throat as you walk out the door.
There you go. That's that's a conditioning in Lithuania. That would be, it's like whatever you do. And I do still, I mean, although you say that, it's like, and it does get into that flow for a lot of people in the outside world. A lot of people do get fucked over, unfortunately, and they do get into those situations, sticky situations where sign NDAs. That's
don't get me wrong. We will get the paperwork done.
Right.
It will get done,
Yeah.
but there's just a level of knowing,
right?
Like going into that conversation already, it's like, okay, we know we're going to hash this out. We know it makes sense. This is such a perfect level of synchronicity and alignment here. It's just going to work,
right?
And we'll figure it out, And the other thing is that because you know each other and you know where you're at, like. Yeah. I know that I'm not greedy and I don't want to fucking penny pinch and try and squeeze him. And I know he doesn't want to do the same to me. So we'll find something fair that adds value, because we also know that if you try and take too much from a deal, in my experience, if you over negotiate, you actually get a worse performance from the other person 100%. Because they're resentful 100%. About the deal.
Yep.
Whereas if they're adequately compensated, then they overperform. It's like what's the saying? Show me the incentives and I'll show you the results.
Right.
I want everybody to be properly incentivized. I want everybody to win.
That's the biggest thing. It's just, that's what happens in corporate America, where you're being overutilized, over squeezed, and you feel like, you feel resentful. You feel entitled to more because you're being just undervalued, quite frankly. And that's where that centralized, governmental structure comes from. It's just this sticky, unpleasant way of being that I'm just too familiar with.
Well, it's built on a fucking farce. What we're talking about, the Federal Reserve and fiat currency. I mean, that's another topic to go into on another day. But well, it's just forced slavery. But that's neither here nor there, guys. You know what I mean?
But and that's the beauty of it. It's just one of the things that I always remind myself, that I only have one reputation. I only have one name. And no matter if I change it, it's just it always bites you back in the ass if you're not being honest and genuine. And in the past, I have been greedy, and I have been, when I was thinking about myself, and I was like, how can I just get this deal for myself? And I just wanted to involve as few people as possible. Shit just never went through. It was never as pleasant. It was never as flowy. And when you're just focusing on how much you can get rather than how much you can give and create, it's not comparable at all whatsoever.
I can't remember the guy's name. I really should, but he said something really epic. He just coaches really high level entrepreneurs. He's like, I do not give a fuck how much money you earn, how much money you can make. I give a fuck about how much money you can circulate.
Right.
And that is so powerful.
I don't care about your level of success. I care about your level of service.
Yeah. Love that.
And that's another piece right now that when you ask how am I doing, it's just I'm at the place right now, at a spot in my life where you cannot find enough money in this world, or enough whatever else in this world, to buy the level of peace that I'm experiencing on a day-to-day basis. And that's been the biggest gift. And I wish every single person could have it, which they can. It's just right now, I'm so open to share that gift with the world. And if anyone approaches me from that truly curious place where they really are going to do the work, I'm just so open to helping them out. But most people just want a shortcut, and most people just are not willing to engage with themselves enough in order to reach that level of peace. That's it.
Yeah, as soon as it's like, well, you just need to sit with yourself for at least an hour a day to start. How about that? People are like, oh,
but I don't have time.
I don't have enough. You do. So let's make it a little bit more actionable then. So what would that look like? So for somebody that doesn't have the same level of peace that you have right now, what would be the steps that they would need to take in order to achieve that?
As you said, sit for at least an hour a day in silence with yourself. Whatever comes up, observe it, sit with it. If you want some guidance, onedaymeditationchallenge.com. Do a one-day meditation challenge. See what that brings up. If you are more adventurous, take a 10-day one, vipassanonline.com. If you are truly looking to take things to the next level, write out 50 things that you could change in the world, and see what sits really well within your body. It's like, where can you impact 1,000 people? Just start with 1,000. Don't think about the million. 1,000 people, in which industry would you like to serve and solve a problem, like truly solve the problem for? And that's the first step. And then keep asking yourself questions on a weekly basis of whether you're moving in that direction or completely into the opposite. And do your actions align with the direction that you're looking to move into? So plan, reflect, sit with yourself, and do that for a year. And do that for 30 days, actually. And if you don't feel a difference, I'm going to get your money back.
I'm going to give you that free money back.
Yeah.
I love that, man. So tell people where they can find you. I think it's an epic point to end on. I think there's been some mad value there. Where can people find you? And tell people a little bit about what you've got going on right now, because we've spoken about business loosely, but we've failed to mention like some of the epic shit that you're actually doing right now. I'd love you to speak into that a little bit, where they can find you, where they can get involved in this.
So the easiest way to find me is on Instagram, human.optimized with a Z for you Brits, American spelling, human optimized. And we're working on a few projects right now that are very exciting. A few are educational projects that I'm not yet really allowed to talk about. But one of them is Breath Masters. Breath Masters is a business opportunity for someone who really wants to make impact in the world. And if they don't know what their Dharma is and the level of service that they can create, and that would be a great entry point for someone who's looking to serve people and help people to process their emotions and serve their communities. That's a great place to start. So you get a skill that is recession proof, that is always in the industry, that is always going to grow. Like the wellness industry is growing by 10% every year, and it's like a $5 trillion industry. You know, it's crazy. So you taking that piece of the pie with having a skill and implementing that to your community, that's a great step. So that's a very exciting project, and that's something that we've been working hard at for a while. Another ones are our Yogi Lab. So Yogi Lab is a company for personal development and the things that we wish we learned at school, and the things, that practical application of skills that we just don't have, from nutrition to high performance to breath work to meditation to yoga, the things that really benefit us in our day-to-day life. And that's another exciting project. So Yogi Lab app is now available as well. And then actually I pretty much retired from coaching, unless you are willing to carve out close to 7 figures to work with me personally. That's the only way to work with me personally and really achieve that level of peace that you cannot put the price on. And I'm less and less willing to exchange my time for money, or I'm not willing to exchange my time for money anymore. It's just with people who are willing to truly invest in themselves on a very high level, and they are truly dedicated to achieve the peace and true internal success in their lives, where they're aligned, where they're peaceful. That's something that I'm open to, but other than that, it's just not worth my time.
Love it, bro. Yeah. Thank you very much. Pleasure as always. Let's go get some food, man. I'm hungry as fuck.
Yeah, let's get some sushi.
Sweet, brother.